There's a really simple way to monetize the heck out of your social media right now, and most business owners aren't doing it. In fact, I've been consulting with some six figure, multiple six figure, a few seven figure, and even an eight figure online brand, and none of them were doing this. And I walked them through the same simplistic strategy that I'm about to show you, and most of them have been able to get a increase in the amount of quality lead flow that they're getting. They are able to, in some cases, double or even triple the amount of consultations that they book. And in all cases, they're improving the amount of sales that they're actually getting. And all of these companies have been posting content. Most of them have been running ads and doing all sorts of kind of quote unquote funnels. But the problem is that most funnels are not linear anymore, right? Where it's like, the old school social media funnel was like post a two-step post and then DM everybody that likes it, send them a lead magnet, book them on a call. And while something like that organically can still work, it doesn't work as well anymore because most people are immune to that type of strategy and because information itself has become so commoditized. And then you want to look at things like both organic and ads. It's much harder to get quality leads from both of these mediums for a couple reasons. Number one is going back to information is a freaking commodity. I mean, I think it was Google Analytics that did a study that shows there's like over 1 billion posts being published across all social media platforms every day. And so we're inundated with the amount of post and information that we're consuming. It's insane. Secondly, AI is out there. And so most people are posting this very generic version of their message. And so people are reading it. It looks very AI. I mean, you go into, Meta Business Manager if you're running ads, and it's like they got all these options for you to use AI. If you go look at any news feed right now, most people's posts are published by AI. So we're living in this like really overly processed fake world, man. And so it actually is easier than ever to monetize social media because you just have to show up and be you. Use your real voice and then use non-linear funnels because that's the way it works. You want to get people to live into your world. And when you can get people to live in your world, then you could truly set up a great lead nurture process. You're able to build that know, like, and trust with people. You're able to stand apart because most people aren't doing this. And you're able to, again, increase the amount of quality leads that you get. It's not necessarily all about the numbers. It's about quality over quantity, at least in my opinion. Secondly, you'll be able to book more consultations. No doubt. Like, you'll be able to get more humans on the call because you're actually building that know, like, and trust, and you're standing out to them. And of course, you're going to increase sales because of that. So here's just a very simple process. I'm going to walk you through about 4 to 5 things. The first thing that you need to do is you have to have great messaging. In a nutshell, you have to make sure that you're saying the right words in the right way to the right people, but doing it in a compelling way. You have to be able to connect with the right people. And so most coaches, most business owners, I should say, are saying words, but it's generic or it's not landing with the right people. Does that make sense? So let's pretend you're in weight loss and you're trying to communicate with, like, say, a working mom or a working dad or something like that wants to lose weight. The way most people are communicating to them are they're using both coach jargon, right? They're like, your hormones and your metabolism, this and that. And then they're also talking about, like, losing a certain amount of weight, but everybody is saying that and it's not super specific. Versus, let's say you're talking to a working mom and you made your messaging be able to connect with them to where you are both using specific language that they would naturally use to their friends. Like, maybe, hey, are you trying to lose those last few inches of the love handles? You get what I'm saying? So when you can get really specific to what they're saying, you're going to naturally connect more to them and you're going to stand out amongst everybody else. And then on the opposing side, when you can use stories, this is where most people drop the ball. They're just like sharing information. Do this workout or this or that. But when you actually share a story with somebody of, like, how yourself or one of your clients, and you give a very specific scenario in the story, it allows people to connect. So imagine you're talking again to working moms. and you talk about a story about your client Jan, who was also a working mom, who was able to do, and you go into depth into the story, right? It's going to connect way deeper with her, and it's going to stand you apart as the creator, as the coach, and it's going to be able to connect more with them, which is going to act as a bridge into your world. And so messaging is a huge uh, idea. There's a lot to it. It's kind of like saying the word nutrition. There's a lot that comes into it. But the big things that you want to really focus on with messaging, because none of the other stuff matters with social media, with running ads, with any of that stuff, if your messaging is off. So you want to make sure that you're speaking in specifics, making it really tangible to your ideal client. Number two is you want to use more stories inside of your messaging, inside of any of your marketing. It's going to help bridge the gap. It's going to help connect with people. And then number three is you want to have some type of unique mechanism, some type of big idea that separates you from the noise. Back in my fitness days, I was talking about the stubborn fat solution. That was my solution to doing things. Does this make sense? Like nowadays, like I have our hero messaging framework. I have different types of frameworks and unique mechanisms that I use to be able to help people get a certain result. You've got to have that same thing. And we can go into a whole masterclass on like naming it and coming up with it. But for now, understand that your messaging has to both be resonant with people and compelling to be able to separate you from the noise. Once you have that in place, the second thing that you need is what I am calling demand trigger content. So we all have psychological triggers. So for example, say you are wanting to buy a house. You might see an ad, you might see a billboard, you might see a piece of content from a realtor that's going to trigger something in your mind that's going to increase the demand that you have for getting the thing. So in a marketing sense, when we're marketing our services, our products, our businesses, we're not trying to create demand for anything. In fact, the late Eugene Schwartz, who was a famous marketer and copywriter, says that we are not trying to create demand. That's not the copywriter's job, right? I'm sorry. We're not trying to create desire. That's not the copywriter's job. We're trying to channel that desire into demand. And so there's already a desire, say, for somebody to lose weight, to make money, to have better relationships, to do whatever. There's already that desire. We're not trying to create that in the marketplace. We're trying to channel the demand. And so when you're creating what I call demand trigger content, is you want to be able to think about what are going to be the most enticing hooks and call to actions that I can communicate that are going to channel what people already desire, and it's going to create demand for my stuff. Does this make sense? And so an example of this could be, let's say you are a weight loss coach. And you already know, man, like we're coming to the end of the year at the time of me recording this video, and people are probably trying to get into shape for the New Year's or before the holidays. You know what I mean? Before like they stuff their faces and stuff. So you would think, like, what is something that I could say today that would create demand? Well, you might say, hey, here's how to shed out 10 pounds of stubborn fat in the next 6 weeks, so you can go into the holidays down 10 pounds. That is going to create demand. So when you put that in your content, when you're putting that in your stories, in your emails, when you create masterclasses or workshops around that, you are going to you're going to channel an already innate desire, and you're going to channel it into something that you can now provide. This is going to get you a lot more people to raise their hand. This is going to get more people to want to reach out to you, to want to consume your stuff. So demand trigger content is absolutely key. This could be done in many different mediums, from text posts to captions with images to reels. You could do long form content around this. There's many ways that you could do this, but it's all built around the hook, how you're hooking people in, and the call to action, where you're sending people. The third major thing here is you want to think about what I call installing a conversion event map. So a conversion event is any type of event that you host. This could be a workshop, a live training, a masterclass, a challenge, anything that is designed for conversions. Pretty simple. It's like a conversion event. But you want to be able to map this stuff out. And so there's something that I invented years ago, back in 2021, called conversion content campaigns. And these are just very simple 3 to 7 day campaigns that you're running with, again, demand trigger content, really good hooks and really good call to actions, where you're driving people to your conversion event. So let's pretend you're going to host a masterclass. You're going to create content, like a campaign around it, with a great hook and a great call to action, leading people to this conversion event. The conversion event will be built around some type of demand trigger content. So let's say we're using the example from weight loss. We're going to be hosting a masterclass on how to lose 10 pounds of stubborn fat in the next 6 weeks before the holidays. That would be the kind of core thesis of the event. So we would drive traffic to that event. And then you would think on the event, we want to be able to deliver a really good piece of content. It's not just about teaching, it's about shifting beliefs. So a really great conversion event is us now delivering this. And it works better live. Some people can do this as like a pre-recorded video. I find personally it works better if you're doing some type of live workshop, masterclass, challenge, something like that. Because on this, you want to get people on live. If they watch the recording, that's totally cool. I'll explain what to do in just a second. But you want to be able to shift their beliefs. That's going to be the secret to your conversions. If you just get on there and you're just teaching information at them, dude, it's like information's a commodity. It doesn't matter. They're going to be like, great, thank you so much. Bye. Like, I'm full. We want to shift their beliefs. And so an easy example of this sticking on our theme of weight loss here is one thing that I always used to do back when I was selling weight loss would be like, everybody thought they had to just eat healthier. They had to diet, they had to cut out calories. And I was like, homie, it's about eating right, not just healthy. So I would shift the belief around, it's not just about eating healthy. You can eat 600 calories of lettuce and it doesn't mean you're going to get the results. It's about eating right. And then I would tell stories on that. I would talk about my stories on how I figured this out, or client stories on when they figured out how it's about eating right. Now people were curious. Well, what is eating right? Well, I'm like, well, you got to dial in your calories. You got to get your proportions right for fat. So I would then shift their belief and I would now educate them around that. Now they were like, well, how do I dial in my calories? So this now created a bunch of demand for my stuff. You see what I'm saying? And so when you focus on shifting beliefs, telling stories, that's how you give true value on these conversion events. Because you're now giving people new perspectives. You're giving people these insights. And as Russell Brunson talks about in his book, Expert Secrets, you could tell a story that becomes what's called an epiphany bridge that allows people to walk over. And this leads them to your call to action. Now, your call to action on these conversion events could be many things, depending on how you sell. If you sell via call, you can offer a free, going back to we'll stick on the theme of weight loss. We could talk about a free stubborn fat loss call, or something like that. I call it, when I do messaging calls for people, I'll call it a messaging makeover, right? And we give them a call where we can give them value. You could do these for free. You could charge for these calls, but we're trying to drive demand. Now, if you're selling in the DMs or via sales page, we would go that route. But that's what we do. And these conversion events start to become the vehicle to monetize. Does this make sense? And so it becomes a really, really, really simple. And then the last thing here, this is actually like a bonus that I think works really well, at least it has for me, is creating what I call a content ecosystem calendar. And so if you're watching this, you're probably, unless you're just a complete beginner or newbie, you're probably well over the days of just like, what do I post? Do I post what do I post on Mondays? It's more so about getting people into an ecosystem. This is how we truly nurture leads. Because in theory, you have great messaging, you have demand trigger content, right? You have these, this conversion event mapped where you're creating these campaigns, driving people to conversion events. You're going to convert, but realistically, not everybody's going to convert every single month. And so we want to have an ecosystem where people can live. And now I like to look at a really great ecosystem, at least in terms of marketing, as 3 different points. And if we think about this like the Bermuda Triangle, in terms of the Bermuda Triangle, if you don't know anything about it, it's Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. And things get sucked into that. Supposedly, ships, planes, people, all kinds of stuff. And so we want to set that up in your marketing. So you want to be able to have, let's say, a top of funnel platform like Facebook or Instagram. This is going to work extremely well for the top of funnel, for running a lot of these campaigns, for posting the demand trigger content. Everything that we talked about is really, really good. It helps you be able to bring people from that top of funnel into the second piece, which is an email list. We want to bring people into our email list. Email list is something that we actually own. You don't own any of the traffic on Facebook or Instagram, TikTok, any of those platforms. You don't. And so the email list you own. So when you can collect emails, phone numbers, things like that, you now have a list, right? And then we can repurpose your best content to that email list. You could promote your campaigns, right? You can leverage your demand trigger content on that email list. And then the third prong here is going to be a long form channel like a YouTube or a podcast. This is fantastic. I've been running a podcast myself since 2020 or 2021. Been a long time. It's been one of our highest converters. So long form content's key. Now, obviously we talked about running conversion events, which in theory, those are long form pieces of content. So when you're more of like newer into this, just the two prongs honestly can work really well because you will run long form content. But as you grow, having that separate nurture channel that allows you to be able to drive your social media traffic from Facebook or Instagram in your email list over to that long form channel. Again, whether it's a YouTube like this, or you're doing a podcast, or maybe it's kind of a combination of both. That's kind of what I do. It's going to allow you to truly create an ecosystem where you can nurture people. Again, Google has done a study and Meta has echoed this to where Google says that they call it the 7-11-4 rule, to where people on average need to consume 7 hours of content from you, 11 different touch points on 4 different mediums. And so to be able to get somebody to trust you enough to want to hand you over money, on average, they have to consume around 7 hours of content. And that's what that part of the ecosystem is for. And now you get people that live in your world. You're building a true list. You're truly building value. And this is how you make it actually work. So, my friend, that is how right now you can monetize social media like crazy. Where most people are going wrong is they're just doing like top of funnel stuff, or they're just running ads, or they're just, again, they're doing stuff to get traffic, but their lead flow is kind of crappy. It's inconsistent on if they get good quality leads or not. They're getting people on calls that aren't buying, right? It's like, or that's inconsistent, but this is like actual thing that works really, really well. And if you want to see an actual full breakdown of this, like, a longer workshop that I did unpacking this, giving examples, the whole shebang, just let me know. Just drop it in the chat. I haven't actually done it yet, but if I have enough interest in it, I will hold a whole workshop on this and be able to walk you through live examples and so forth. So hope you found this helpful. Click subscribe if you did. And as always, I hope you have an amazing day and apply these things. Let me know, put it in the comments, and we'll chat soon. Bye for now.